We'll have the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Go Tigers.
You're not supposed to do that.
I know. Okay, Bill, stand up, please. Everybody doesn't know, the last name is Flick, right?
Click, see on it.
Click, okay. I was thinking of Flick with the pictures. It's Click, yeah. Anachorus?
Yep.
I think that's all. Oh, wait, what's it name?
I was at the holiday dinner.
Yeah.
Even one, I think.
I think we need to call him Cali. Because that's where he's from.
Arizona.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Well,
well,
Aaron.
Aaron. Like short hair.
Ed was
Oh,
at
Ed, yeah,
lifetime.
I'm sorry, Ed Powell.
Ed Powell.
Ed, where are you from, Ed?
I live here, grew up in Aggie.
Anachorus? Okay. Well, he just now moved to Anachorus.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where mom and dad met with Anachorus. He hit that ditch out there with 15 cents in his pocket. So,
I'm still unpacking. I haven't had a chance to do much fishing yet.
yeah. Well, we moved here about 20 years ago. We're still in back. Okay, any other new members? What's your name? Clyde? Stand up, sir.
Yeah.
Everybody know Clyde?
Yes.
Mark, you're not all that old one.
Yeah, I've been here a while.
Stand up a second. Well, I bet Phil doesn't, well, you know, yeah. Okay, Cindy, you got a membership and financial report. I already got the news from her that 28 people are, have not paid the dues yet, so I'll send out an email on that. You'll all get.
How many have paid their dues is 28.
Oh, 28 is paid?
Paid, so we only have a third of the people in our membership that paid so far.
How many have you paid?
A third of the people. So
2/3.
we have approximately 90 members.
28 paid, I thought it was 28.
Yes, no.
Okay. All right, that's not good, okay. Mixed bag report, Jim Johnson, mixed bag.
Yes, sir. As of right now, we got 21 entries. That's as of this morning. Bill's got 7, Chris, Williams has 3, Mike has 3, Carlton has 3, Noah Hoyt has 2, and everybody else has, well, Ed Jones, Robert, and Joel have 1. That's it.
Oh, good. Okay, everybody know what the mixed bag is, how that works? It's on,
Mike, my first picture.
you're gonna cover that, what it is? That species and all that, all right, okay, good. Saltwater report, anybody got a saltwater report? Anybody been out on the salt?
I fished in the Caribbean last 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, lots of money, yeah.
No, may I go no money at all now.
What'd you get?
Grouper and a lot of red snappers
Oh, really?
and yellowtails. And there were people that caught bonefish. There were 20 people on this boat and they were catching bonefish. And people paid thousands of dollars with guides, you know, like Orvis guides to catch bonefish. Isn't that right, Robert?
One of my former bosses was stationed in Belize. He had a boat right there at his house and he was looking out to get out there and he run out about, I don't know, miles and miles.
Yeah.
And he said they could anchor the boat, get out, put a picnic table there and chairs and sit down in that shallow water. He said you could see black tip sharks come cruising by. And he wasn't a fisherman though. So it's a, yes, neat place. I wish you could have gone. They even speak English there. That's their language, right?
Yeah.
Used to be British Honduras.
Yep.
Used to be British Honduras.
Oh, did it? So it changed the name, huh?
1980s.
All right, casting. Casting, Chris Perkins, any word on the casting? When do you think we'll be able to start casting in the backyard here?
We got started today. I was surprised there was that much light out here.
I'm good to start next, well, I don't know when the next meeting is. First 2 weeks in February, I'm out, but I'll be back in there.
Well,
It's
first,
the last Monday in February, so we should be good.
no, the first meeting in February is 13th February.
That's fly time.
Well, it's okay. We usually cash before that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Meeting, the fly time, done, everything starts at 6:30.
But usually rains and fly time.
I will not be there that
Hey.
day, but I can be there after.
Y'all hearing how negative Catch is? I came out here one day and we we're getting ready to go fly time. And the grass was kind of high back there and he was mowing the grass.
Wow.
So he's enthusiastic about
My
it.
little portable electric mower.
Okay, yeah, and I got a picture of that too, though. I should have given it for the Christmas party. Education, Carlton and Robert. Y'all educated anybody lately? All right, we're looking at the, we're toying around with when, the fly fishing 101 is gonna be. And I think we, hold on a second.
Well, I think we're talking about maybe changing locales, venues.
Changing what?
Venues.
Yeah, we'll talk about that offline because Chris likes the place over there, Lake Buelo. I think it sucks. So,
Just in case you don't understand who's got.
yeah, we got different opinions on that, but it needs to be a, huh?
I love it over there.
I do too, but I don't like it for something like Fly Fishing 101 because it doesn't have the seating. It doesn't have elevated, where you're in the back where you can see. So anyway,
For having 30 people, yeah, it's a little small.
that one over there, it's
Yeah.
real small, 30 people,
Yeah,
it'd be, yeah, bad. Anyway,
tight.
Right, so-
We get to know each other real well.
okay, Fly Fishing 101, I penciled in for April 22nd, based on the fact that our last Fly Fishing 101 was April 23rd. So in 2022 was April 23rd. I said, okay, April 22nd, which is a Saturday. It fits, it generally fits where we normally have it. So unless something is, we'll leave it there for the time being. Although not too long for the time being, because we're gonna have to schedule that, whatever facility we decide to use, we're gonna have to schedule it. And then stay in contact with those guys so they don't give it away.
What's the date again?
I put down, Chris, you write down what I just said? April 22nd. It was 23 April last year. Okay, and also put on the, once I get a few things straightened out, I'll send out a little bit of a calendar of events. We got National Hunting and Fishing Day coming up and all that kind of stuff, but that's all the service things. Okay, I don't think we've done it. Chris, you're on the conservation committee. We did anything? I keep thinking about Keith's recommendation that we put some places to dump monofilament. Because I see it all over the place around Coteal and what's that other lake down there where they give you speeding tickets.
Indian Creek.
Yeah, Indian Creek. In some areas, it's just, you can hardly walk that mono. Cold Water Committee, Carl. We got the Marsh Brown coming up.
Yeah, March Brown, March 23rd through 26th. I so far have heard from 18 people that are going. And I know that there's quite a few more that hadn't responded. Swaha House is filled up to full. Anybody knows of anybody need a place to stay, I'll be glad to put them on the waiting list. But plans are coming along for that, and while we're talking about that, plans have been made for a mystery fly tournament whereby everybody that participates have to be a club member to participate. So that's maybe one way to.
Paid up dues.
Gets one fly that nobody will know what it is until the morning of, that'll be the Saturday morning of the weekend. And I've made arrangements for the flies, but I don't know what they'll be and won't know until we open an envelope on site to pass them out. And, it's just a fun tournament. Scoring will be based on number of trout caught. And, everybody's on their own honor system. I know they're all fishermen, but still try and be honest and report, how many fish you caught, how many limited to trout. And only on that one fly that's passed out to you. It's the only thing you can fish. There'll be some extra flies that you can purchase for $10 a piece. One a person while supplies last, and I don't know how many will be participating, how many extra there will be available.
And also,
And then, so if you lose a fly, you have to buy that mulligan fly before the tournament starts. In other words, whenever it's passed out.
before you leave the premises, go into
Yeah.
the water. Yeah.
And prizes will be awarded. It'll just be a Saturday morning event. Fished anywhere on the river, prizes will be awarded for first, second, and third place.
Now, one thing that was added to the rules was that after everybody has a chance to buy a mulligan, there'll be a first come, first serve, second mulligan people can buy.
If there's any left.
Yeah, that's right. If there's any left, that's right. So don't cut in line because that's, somebody might, I don't know, just don't do it.
So I have allowed $20.
Yes, sir.
And if it's a fish unique to you, it will count towards the next bag,
What?
whatever you catch.
Oh, yeah, but you gotta do a picture and all that kind of stuff. So if you want to take a picture out there on the river with your iPhone.
Right.
I recommend go over the grass. You gotta take that picture, but yeah, you're right, absolutely right. I can't manage taking a picture of fish to gym standards without dropping the phone. Okay, warm water, Catch? Got anything on warm water?
No, it's not warm enough yet.
Okay.
Amen.
Good way to back out.
It's a problem.
Actually, well, I will say this, tomorrow, they're supposed to stock, Natchitoches, Park Natchitoches, rainbow trout.
Okay.
Is that right? Yeah, tomorrow.
Now,
So,
the
that's-
one that you was, but rainbows and gold.
yeah, they have. And they put rainbows and golds in part of Natchitoches Park. What's different about Natchitoches Park is it's green all the way around. It's a really big lake. It's about maybe 4 acres, 5 acres. It's green all the way around for fly casting. And I caught some nice trout out there last year. So
Chrissy
Go out
and
there
I
and-
went to, Chrissy and I went to Fort Randolph
Mhm.
last week. And the water's really high, so that grass is not right there on the edge, which you still get caught in the grass. We didn't catch anything. But, there was a young man there that was casting and he was catching them right and left.
Was it really?
Yeah, he had a whole bunch. Probably more than he should.
It'd be five or three.
No, he was giving them away, so. And then I was standing there fishing and this man came up and come find out he was a member that I'd never met before.
Who was it?
Last name was Danae, Joey Danae.
Joe,
Oh,
Joe,
not
Joe,
Joe.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Probably one kid's over. Okay.
he wasn't fly fishing, he was fishing.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, it was interesting.
He's
He'd
a
been
communist.
My mailman when I was a child.
Oh, really?
I didn't know it, yeah. Small world.
Yeah. Okay, membership, I think we've already talked about membership and paying the dues. Yeah, Chris?
One thing that Catch might fill in more about it, but Catch, Bill, Chris Williams, and I all went to last Saturday's New Orleans Fly Fishers. What they call that, Catch? Was it their
New Orleans Fly Fishers Expo.
expo? So we were well represented. Oh, and Jeff Ferguson was there as well.
Yeah.
So we did casting and tying down there. They were very surprised that many people came to that park.
And one person that was gonna go didn't go because they go to the film.
Well, then you have.
I was gonna ride with Flip.
You have a spirit, but yeah, and that's right. Flip was in that, and Flip is a club member here as well, right?
Yeah.
So count them up, there's a number, quite a few of them.
I was dreading driving that long. I ended up having to drive that long anyway. Sucks. It's okay. All right, any other events that we need to really brief real quick? We got near horizon stuff, start casting when? Next meeting, Chris?
Casting, I can start the, not the next meeting because I'm, country, but then.
You can be here next meeting,
Mhm.
I'm on.
start casting,
Would that be?
Yes.
okay?
The regular club meeting in February you're talking about? So the.
No, we're talking about the next meeting,
The club meeting,
Yeah. When is
Fly
it?
time,
13th and 14th?
13th February.
not fly time. You're not gonna be here fly. time?
No, it doesn't matter. Hey, no,
Ketch is gonna do it?
catch me.
Good.
It doesn't matter. We got other people can instruct.
Okay.
And I'll be here.
Fishing reports. Anybody, can't see any fish? They want to talk about?
Well, there's a ton of fishing in the Little Mo. I was up there week before last. And a lot of really nice fishes this year. Catching quite a few 14-inch fish, a few 15. I caught 3 16-inch, big as I've caught up there. And they took a while to get started stocking, but they're stocking good now.
Okay. Well, Thursday I fished at the Broussard Sports Complex. And I just caught a couple of them. Water was murky, it was high, 20% kind of covered up the grass. And caught a, what was it?
We don't know.
They figured it out yet? Okay. One of them I know I hadn't got it because at least I got, that's why I got 3. The other one I think might have been a bluegill. But anyway, I ran into a guy. I went over to tell him, hey, I noticed you hadn't been catching fish. I caught 2. And anyway, he showed me around that lake. He's fished it a lot. Got the first name, last name Dugas. But anyhow, that's a pretty good place to
Where's
fish.
Broussard?
Broussard, it's in the town of Broussard,
Oh,
where the Broussard Sports Complex is. And there are 2 ponds in there. When you walk around, you got to watch these guys and doing the steel rim frisbee golf. But they're pretty good about not throwing close to people. But yes, really, it's a safe place to send it,
okay.
as far as I can tell. Okay, any other comments from just a general meeting here? If not, we'll start off. Do you want to go with the photography class first?
Yeah.
So Jim Johnson's going to give a talk on what's happened. There's a lot of times I get pictures that are like, I sent in a picture one time that a guy all the way across the river, took a picture because I didn't have my camera. You can barely see it was a rainbow trout, but that's not going to happen with some of these other fish.
For the new members that don't know it, if you go to the blog or the website, there's a whole detail of all the instructions on about the mixed bag tournament. But where do you want me at, Chris?
Right there.
Okay. All right. It's a tournament where any fish you catch counts. Any species, size does not matter. It can be a 2-inch minnow or a 40-pound redfish. Doesn't matter. Has nothing to do with it. It's about the number of different species. And might have to give you on this catch, but it's got to come from Tennessee. I mean, from Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, Florida, and that's it, right?
I think Alabama.
Alabama's in too, right? Yeah, okay. And so it can come from any of those states
But it's only part of Florida, right?
to the
Apalachicola.
Apalachicola River. That's as far east as you can Florida. So you can't go to Tampa and catch all that off the wall stuff, peacock bass, all that stuff down in South Florida. Doesn't count. Okay, and it's a fun tournament. We have prizes at the end of the year. For those of y'all who went at the banquet this year, you saw what the prizes were. They differ from year to year. You gotta have a photograph of them. And for sometimes that's a problem because people just have a tendency to pull out of the water, take a picture, throw it. That's good. Bill and I and Chris, whoever else can identify a rainbow trout. Okay, I can see it. But when you get to some of these sunfish, It's impossible unless you've got a clear up close photograph. All right, I've got them where they're upside down, backwards, I mean, hanging from strings. I mean, you know, we could get some of them, but I appreciate it if you try to, and I'm probably preaching to the choir. So can anybody tell what this fish is?
Shearfish.
I think it's a white.
Okay, but my point is that sometimes we can't tell. I mean, you know, on this side it's supposed to be a rainbow trout, right? By the way, my grandson won't see something.
Did you get that?
But that's the point I'm making is so many of these fish are close to being identical. When we get to panfish, they hybridize. Okay, so if we got a hybridized fish, we have to make a decision on which one you want to call. Now, we got some naturally occurring hybrids that are in the lakes, for example, striped bass. You got striped bass and a white bass and a hybrid striper. Okay, you can't, if you catch a hybrid striper, you can't count it as one or the other. Can't use it for both. So if you caught two of them, you can't see one of them striped bass, one of them white bass. We got down to identification things on largemouth bass and spotted bass. There's one way to tell it, and it cures it all. You stick your finger in its mouth, and it's got a rough patch on its tongue, like a piece of sandpaper. That's a spotted bass. If it doesn't have that, it's a largemouth. Most of the time, I can look at the picture and tell you, but by chance you can't. Yeah, that's the identifying mark. And if you call it a small or spotted bass and you checked it like that, then that's what we're going to count it as. We've never thrown the fish out yet. I mean, we've learned to research stuff in books because Carlton can find stuff that we've never seen in our life. But, you know, and that's, but basically the biggest part is the picture, and you got to have the fly with it. So, you know, not that we got people, nobody's been ever dishonest, but no, it kind of helps because when you log it in on here, you got what you caught it with, the fly you caught it with, and the location of it. And like I said, it doesn't matter if it's a bluegill that large or a pound and a half bluegill. It's
Yeah, that changed because it's either the fly or the rod, right?
It's a fly. When we originally started this, we had the cards, and we put the card with the fish. You had the Kisatchie mixed bag tournament, and that's what a token. We did away with that. And what I would prefer is you put the rod down with the fly and the fish laying in front of it. Okay, that's not always possible. You know, like you're trying to release the fish, you're out there in the middle of the river, and you don't want to haul it all the way back to the bank. But if you can pick it up and take a picture of it, it's got the fly. You know, and we will take that. So.
Will you identify the fly? Because I don't know what the flies in my box are.
I forget what he calls it.
We can get close in. We know it's a fly. It doesn't matter if the fly is identified right or not.
Sure.
I have no idea what the
Rules say, you know,
Photo must include fish and either fly or tackle, rod or both. Okay, that's what it
okay,
says.
so that's.
Everybody hear that? The photo must include the fish and either fly or tackle, rod, reel, or both. They must be clear when we look at the photo on the fly that it was caught. Okay, you got to submit it within 30 days. You can't save them up and sandbag and bring them all in here in December. It don't work that way, you know. So the quicker you do it, the better. I mean, we know when it's taken because when you send that picture to us, the metadata is on it, so we realize it's in 30 days.
Yeah,
We
think
don't
of
have-
yourself as having to score all these fish and stuff. And then somebody at the last minute submits like 18 fish. And they want to go fishing rather than sit there and try to identify fish. So give it to them as soon as you can.
In the event we can't identify them, which that has happened often. I've got 2 state biologists we go to, and then what's the guy's name that did a presentation on that with Chris?
Chris Williams.
The guy with Chris.
Oh,
It does, yeah,
Yeah.
it does all the sunfish.
Yeah,
Because sunfish are a challenge. They crossbreed 3 different kinds of one fish, it looks like sometimes. I mean, and we have to make a decision. And some of them we hadn't been able to identify. State couldn't identify them. But it's because they're hybridized. So, but the most important thing is try to take a clear, precise photograph. I'm not going down to having to count fins and stuff to try to make sure it's that or not, which one it is. I mean, that's where you have to identify some of these. But the number of stuff, but we're not gonna have to get that down that nitty gritty. Unless Carlton brings in something out of the bottom of a little moat. I'm messing with you, bud. I know you got a picture of, what's the name of it?
I forget what you call it.
It's a hog sucker, right?
Oh, sucker.
Yeah.
Anybody got any questions?
Yeah.
So please, sorry.
Oh, I always got questions. I don't know what state it was in, but I remember looking and there was an identification process where a certain fish had two toothpasses and another one had one. That may have been a hybrid striper or something like that. But since we can finish, or we can fish, what, 5 states, 6 states? Are they gonna, do they have, you know what I'm talking about 2 patches or one?
Not
Okay,
clear.
no,
Which fish are you talking about?
I don't know. I can't remember. I think it might have been stripers.
Well, I just
Hybrid.
discussed that a minute ago. That's what I said a minute ago. You got a white bass, and you got a striper, but hybridized is a wiper. Okay, you can't count them as 3 species. You can count a striped bass if you got a pure striper. You can count a white bass if you got a pure white bass, but you can't take a wiper and count it as a 3rd
I
species.
understood that. The question was, there was a, one state had a requirement for identifying the fish that's caught. One had 2 toothpatches.
That's a wiper.
The other one had 1 toothpatch.
Right, that's how you distinguish a striped bass from a wiper.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how you
Okay,
ID them,
good,
yeah.
that's all.
Yeah. So I mean, but you can't, you have to make a choice on what you want to call it.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, that's correct. That has had toothpatch, got the double in there.
Yeah.
And it's hard to tell. Because I took one and dissected this year just to take a picture of the inside of his mouth to try to see what they were talking about. That's before we went in the freezer, but yeah. So exactly. I didn't catch it. Any questions? But we encourage y'all all to try it. It doesn't matter if you got 1 fish in there or 20. Because at the end of the year, we have a drawing, and for y'all that were there this year, we had some pretty nice prizes in the drawing because you had 1 entry. And that's important participation. Last year, we had over 100 and something entries. So let's, get out there and try to catch something. It don't matter if we come out of a ditch off the side of the highway out here. And there's some good fishing. They count. Okay, any questions?
Yeah, I just want to make one point. If you out there catching sunfish and you're an FFI member, how many here are FFI members? Okay, you can participate in the Sun Catch Challenge, which the Gulf Coast Council sponsors. And you just go out there, same like the mixed bag. You go in, you enter a form and all that. They, Ben Russell's now in charge of it. He's the director. You can put in a thing where you can actually upload the picture in the thing without having an email and just submit it. And if you, it's like 16 species that are within the Gulf Coast Council boundaries, that qualified species. If you catch 9 of them, you win the Sun Catch Challenge Award, which is a nice mug with sun trout. We did have Whitlock, Dave Whitlock mugs there for a while, but those are
They got rare.
we may not be able to get those again, but we've gotten another artist to do the sunfish on the mug. And so it's really cool mug. And then in the drawing, when we're gonna get 5, we're gonna do a drawing for a flyer wheel among those 5 people. If you get this, all 16, you become Sun Catch Master, and we haven't figured out what the award for that's gonna be. But it's gonna be pretty good. It's gonna be really good. So go ahead. I mean, you're catching fish for this, the mixed bag, and you've got like 5 species in there already. Go ahead and enter into the Sun Catch Challenge. It's not time limited like the mixed bag is. So if you caught 3 last year and you catch 3 this year, that's 6 altogether. Okay. You catch 2 more next year, that's 8. Okay, so it's not limited by time.
Is there some difference in photography part? Picture can be thrown up in the grass or there's
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
something different.
Yeah, Ben says, Ben had that rule where
Needs to be a clean
don't put
fish.
them out in sand. I think he says grass is okay, but not sand or dirt or anything like that.
And the point he's making there, and this is well here too to help us out, If you catch a brim and he gets off up on the side of the bank, he gets grass all over, try to wipe it off and rinse him off before you release it and take the picture. Because it's, help fish out. One covered grass don't have the other side of it. And I thought Bill said he wouldn't, that Ben didn't want those last year or something.
Jim, you
Yes, sir.
also mentioned that you can't include things that you catch out of your private pond.
Right, yes, good point. It has to be a public lake or public stream. Everybody has to be able to have access to it. That's a good point, Rich, thank you. Because you cannot go in a public pond, a private pond and catch a fish and it count.
Is the zoo considered public?
It's a what? The zoo?
I'm just-
Might be, I don't know.
Yeah, that's public.
Koi, we ain't never had a koi on there yet, but go ahead, Sandy. We'll come bail you out. We'll bail you out.
Goldfish.
Oh, and that, you said he put golden trout and rainbow in there? They count for one.
What do you mean?
Just one species.
Yeah.
Really?
That's a rainbow.
They're
Oh, I
just
didn't know that.
melanistic adaptation with rainbow trout.
Oh, okay.
They
Yeah,
actually
really.
use them, they actually breed them to count the trout.
That's how they
When they
count
put-
trout, like
yeah,
how
when
they
they
just
put the
want.
trout, they put a pipe like that, and they're counting every white trout that goes through. And so, it's like one for every 20 trout. And when they've got about 10 of them, then they've got 200 trout.
Because there is a separate species of golden trout.
Yeah.
And
sure
going to
is.
California, yes.
I thought that's what they're putting.
No.
It's a rainbow.
Anything else? Thanks, Rich, for bringing that up. That's good point. Also on the highest bidder.
So,
Now, believe it or not, I got a grandson that walks.
hey, hey, Jim.
Sorry.
Hey, I'm the one that donated those. Don't make fun of me. But you won't go where? All right, Cash, you ready?
Yeah.
All right, Catch Cormier is gonna talk about crappie fishing in the lake winter. And he's Cash, you the best fly fisherman in this room
Me?
right now?
I don't know.
I'm not-
That guy over there is pretty doggone good. Those two, right? They're pretty doggone good. Especially fishing the little boat. I was watching one day, I was fishing, I was watching Robert there, he was catching every cast. I said, doggone, that guy's good.
Those are your
Then I
friends.
found out he was using that squirming. doggone it.
This is not a trout magnet. Trout magnet.
Okay, so Lake Winter crappie, and this is from Kincaid, and this is February, so that's what we're talking about tonight. Because between now and the end of next month, we're gonna be seeing a lot of fish moving up into the showers this morning. So I'm just gonna do some crappie facts for you. White crappie have vertical bars, the dorsal fin is 5-6 spines. Black crappie have random blotches, and dorsal fin is spine. Most of the lakes west of here, like Kincaid, Cotillo, Vernon, all that, you see black crappie. And you see more white crappie as you go east, like in Lake Cocodrie and Tew Lake and Wallace Lake and some of those others. So the black crappie are going to probably spawn a little earlier than the white crappie do. Okay, so they border on cool water transitional. That means that they're not a cold water species, but as far as warm water species, they're like early in the season as far as spawning goes. In fact, they're going to be spawning starting right now. We're getting into that transition, which we'll talk about in a little while right now. They have rapid growth in southern waters, but they have a short lifespan. But up north, even though it's a lot slower growth, they live longer. If you catch a crappie in Minnesota, that's 2 pounds, he's probably about a 9-year-old fish. Whereas over here, he probably was a 3-year-old fish. And they spawn once per year, 20 to 40,000 eggs. Yeah, it seems like a lot, but it's really not that many more than fast. Okay, so here's some of the crappie records. IGFA record for black crappie is about 5 pounds, white crappie 5.3 pounds. Louisiana all tackle 3.8, 4 and 3.8 for white, and then fly rod record, Tony Boatwright, who was a member of our club at one time, he has a record of 2.23 pounds, and then my friend Gary Peterson has white crappie at 1.84 pounds. I caught a black crappie this past year, that was 2.1 something pounds. So it's second place right there. And it was caught in Kincaid too. So if you want to get some big crappie, they're in Kincaid Lake over there. One thing I will mention about this, at one time crappie in the state records was one category. In other words, there wasn't separate categories for black and white crappie. So when the Louisiana Outdoor Rights Association decided to separate the species, they couldn't tell which was black and which was white. So they took all of the previous records off the books, which included several 4 and 5 pound crappie out there. So, and what's interesting is they also had some of those fish were caught in private waters. The neighborhood I used to live in Baton Rouge, 2 blocks from my house, was a 9-acre lake. Was responsible for 4 of the top 10 crappie in the state of Louisiana. After we had lined that lake, 2 years afterwards, we were catching giant crappie. The smallest one on the records was caught by my son. It was only 3 pounds, 3 ounces. The largest was caught by Roger Rosendale, and that was 4 pounds, 12 ounces out of that one pond area down there. By the way, Roger's now a guide in Mississippi, a really good guy too, on the coast. But anyway, the biggest one, the biggest loss was that 6 pounder that Letty Robertson caught in West Wego. And they didn't know what to do with that one right there. So sadly, we lost a lot of big fish when we redid the records. Creel limits, Louisiana is the most liberal in the country by far. 50 daily with 0 size, minimum size inches. Texas is 25 daily, 10-inch minimum size. Mississippi was just changed theirs 2 years ago. They weren't 30 daily, but now some lakes up there like Octavilla and Grenada and Calling Panther and some others are now down to 15. And they're producing some giant crappie out there. I'm talking about 4 pounders being caught every week. Alabama's third and Arkansas's third. There's some reason, and I hear biologists even today say it, that crappie can overtake a lake or a pond. Maybe a pond if you don't have predators, but they can't overtake a lake. That's almost impossible, especially if you got catfish in that lake. If you go to False River, Concordia, those lakes over there, Oxbow Lakes, there should be a lot more crappie as a percentage of the game fish, but they're not. But guess what? There's a lot of them in those lakes. Catfish, tons of catfish in those lakes. And I know that catfish eat small crappie because that's what the commercial fishermen used to do to catch catfish. They would hook their lines, using small crappie like that, and just put them out there. And they'd actually do better than some of the stink bait. So again, there's no reason to have 50 fish. If you ask me, that's just a waste. If you go fishing with any of the guides at Toledo Bend, of course, Toledo Bend is lower. It's 25 daily out there. But even then, you know, they don't encourage you to keep 25. At least the good guys, like Living Tree Guide Service, you know, they'll get you into other fish. They're trying to keep it about 20 or something, so you can have some quality fish to bring home. Yes.
I'm just noting that back in Arizona, they used to have unlimited for crappie. People would catch them by the hundreds to stand out there with their electric knives and just slap them all night long. And you can't hardly find them anymore. This is back when I was a younger guy. They could catch them by the hundreds, and nowadays it's hard to find them.
You know why they did that, but it's totally different from down here. They consider it invasive species. Yeah. It's the same thing like with pike in Utah. You know, you can catch as many as you can. Or smallmouth. I think there's one state where even smallmouth, you know, it's like as many as you catch or keep.
Not Texas, is it?
No, it's not
They
Texas.
pushed out the Guadalupe in some of the rivers.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the Guadalupe, you're right. In hill country rivers, you can catch every smallmouth you want.
I don't know if you guys are familiar with Lee's Ferry in northern Arizona, in the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
Colorado River there. They are very selective there, and they actually put a bounty on brown trout. Because brown trout got in there and they started messing with the rainbow ecosystem. And the game and fish put a bounty on brown trout. You could bring them back and they pay you $25 for every one you brought out.
You make some money that way.
It didn't go Yellowstone Lakes.
Well, in the Barge Creek in Wyoming, which is fishing a lot, they had, keep all the rainbow trout and brown trout they catch. It still didn't work. What they ended up having to do is build a weir near the barge and rope knowing whole sections of the upper river and just killing everything in it and then coming back and restocking. So yes, in cases where there's invasive species like that, there's no limit. Yeah, they're not invasive here. Okay, so what do crappie want? They want deep water structure, spawning structure. They like a large, diverse forage base. So if you've got redfin shad, golden shiner, grass shrimp, even insects, anything that you need. They eat a lot of stuff. They like few high impact predators, like I said, catfish. You got a lake, like Spanish Lake in New Iberia, used to be an awesome sockeye place. You go over there and you can catch them off the bank. You can catch a nice ice chest full of sockeye right off the bank. But they kept stocking catfish into that lake over and over again. And now we got to the point where you can hardly catch a sockeye anymore. So that's a key right there. And of course, world peace. Don't we all want world peace? So does sockeye. Okay, so sockeye are a structured species. That means if you have any kind of structure, anything they can hang around, that's where they're going to be. And the structure can be fallen trees, man-made structure like this. In the case of that pond right there, it's basically a bowl, but they've got grass all along the edges of it. And those sockeye will hang on the edges. Your best friend when you're trying to locate sockeye is a fish finder. I have two of them. I have this one, and I have both of these. This one right here is battery operated, and I just use the rechargeable AA batteries in there, and it's the one I use most often. Because although this gives me all kind of great stuff like GPS, I can see the map of the lake, and you can see all the structure down there and everything else. All I need to do is find fish. Give me the water temperature, the depth, and where the fish are, and that works. Okay, so when I was living in Baton Rouge, I would start fishing sockeye about the middle of January. And this is where, this area below the red line right here, is where I would target, because that's when fish start spawning. These areas like Lac des Almonds, canals off Lac des Almonds, backwaters over here on Homa, in the Blind River Swamp, around Potterville, and then even around Bell City right here. I come sometimes. I used to go down to Golden Meadow and Galliano and fish for sockeye. Everybody tells me, says, well, did you catch any saltwater fish? You catch any redfish spectra? I said, no, I went sockeye fishing. They thought I was crazy, but on the inside levee over there at Golden Meadow, those canals are just full of redfin shad. And those sockeye get nice and big and fat. They look like dinner plates. They're so big. And you catch them in January, spawning up against there. You catch them off the drainage pipes out there. If you find anything that was like a stump or a tree that was down, they'd be there. So we talked about 60, 65 degrees. This area, of course, is going to be the warmest water. It's going to be where those fish first start to spawn. And then you got into February, and that's when sockeye and Otter Lake, Ravenwood Lake would start spawning, but also Chico, Miller's Lake, Mundix Lake, False River, backwaters of False River, all those areas in there. And then above the blue line, we used to come up here and stay, for spring break, the kids, and we fish Cotil, Valentine, Rotamaker. Back in those days was actually clean water, catch a lot of chickpin and some sockeye off the bank. And I always thought, okay, when we moved up here, it's almost gonna be 9 years now. I thought, okay, March is when sockeye will start spawning and everything. Let me show you what. This is where I live, exact spot. Right where the Hemp Hill Creek, this is Hemp Hill Creek right here, Indian Creek. Right where Hemp Hill Creek enters Lake Cotil. And all this back to where the X's are creeks, they come into there and join up and break out into another creek that goes to the other side. All that water in there is anywhere from 6 to 10 feet deep in most spots, and it's deep as 18 feet in a number of spots where it bends and turns. It's great. It was great winter fishing for crappie, because those crappie would come in from that part of the lake and they would just concentrate up in here. Remember my little fish finder? I'd go down in my canoe and I'd see beep, 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 around a lot of deep structure that was down there. And I could get, some boats would come back in there and they'd fish about where that first bend is right there. But I could go all the way down over here and I'd still catch crappie in my kayak. Well, the window for those fish in that system was first cold front, deep cold front, like when you get down to freezing temperature in November to about the 1st of February. And my neighbor John said, you know, he could catch them off his dock in Bayou. I call it the Bayou, Hemp Creek, starting, you know, about usually around mid-November. He said by the 2nd week of February, he never caught another one for the rest of the year. And so it kind of surprised me because I thought, okay, that those fish would stay there till March and then move out in the lake, because I knew I was catching them spawning in March. Well, it turns out what they're doing is they're going through a transitional period where they leave that deep water, that protected water, they go out in the lake early February, and then they're just all loose around, you know, they're scattered all across. And then at some point they come together and spawn. And that could be in March. Could be late February. I went out with, I go out with Living Dream Guide Service. And Jerry Thompson, who's the owner, I fished with him several times. I made a trip with him about 6 years ago for late February. And he called me up and he said, Mr. Glenn, he says, I think we're gonna have to cancel the trip. I said, why? He says, well, the fish have left the deep water and they're scattered now. So we started talking about this, and he confirmed this theory right here, that what's happened is those fish leave the deep areas like the chicken coop and they start going out to spawn, but they may not spawn, they just scatter out. Because what he did tell me was, if I was going with the groups and naturally doing the party voyage thing, you know. But he said, if you want to go and just with somebody and just come catch, he says, I know how much you like to catch them on fly rod. He said, we would go in the bass boat, but we're picking up one here, one there, and so on. And I found the same thing. I might be fishing for bass in the lake part right there, and I'll catch a sockeye by accident. Okay. I'll pick one up here, I'll pick one up there, I'll pick one up here, but I won't be catching in a concentration. Then there's some point in time where they just come together and you find those spots and you can sit there and catch, 15, 20 fish. So what I'm telling you is be ready. It's right now, it's gonna be starting anytime they're gonna be going in transitional period. And maybe you won't find them concentrated, but you'll find fish here and there and there. They'll be in the target zone. For me, the target zone is 8 feet of water or less. If it's, if they're in 8 feet of water or less, I can catch them on fly rod. I feel good about catching them on fly rod. Let's put it that way. I don't like trying to use a fly rod with 20 feet of water. I'm sorry. So basically, that's what the seasonal tactics are. Mostly you have a thermocline, and those fish are down the deepest part, even just slightly below the thermocline, if they can stay there. But during spring and early fall, at their first cold fronts, they move up into the shallows. And so that's when you're going to get best chances for success with fly rod. Okay, so every year for a long time, Larry Hoffman and I would go to the Texas Fly Fishers Fly Time Festival in Houston. It's always the first weekend in February. And on the way, we'd stop and fish I-10 Park in Jennings. Y'all know where that is? Yeah. Okay. Most years, we caught crappie off the bank. Some years, together, combined, we caught over 30 off the bank. So that should tell you right there what their spawning period is. But I want you to notice something. We talk about what their structure, and everybody seems to think, okay, trees, stumps, whatever. This is concrete. That's where those succulents spawn. They'll spawn on rocks, they'll spawn on concrete. Here's another image. You can see the concrete in the background. They're in about 3 to 5 feet of water spawning. In a couple of cases, you can actually see them kind of flash in the water. Like that. Okay, so tackle and rigging. I use anything from 4 to 6 weight, moderate action, 8 to 9 feet long. Just a regular weight forward floating line. I let my new leader sink down. On occasion, I have used a sink tip connector, but usually just a small one. And you could use a sinking line, but I think this time of year, through till April, you don't need that. So what flies to use? They eat so many different things. I've caught them on wet flies. I know Jeff Guerin likes to use wet flies for crappie. But he catches it on the flies that he ties, like the Long Creek and some of the other patterns he's got. Grass shrimp, minnows, the fluff butt, shad patterns, golden shiner, and that's why I like that orange-red seducer for crappie sometimes. Because if you have golden shiner, which almost every lake does now, do y'all know the history of the golden shiner? Okay, it's talk about invasive species. This was originally an East Coast fish, forage fish. And during the 90s, Orlando Wilson and Roland Martin were on TV, and they were fishing Florida lakes with golden shiners under balloons. And they would throw that out and see the balloon hopping along like this. And then this big old bass, about 10 pounds, would hit it. And then they'd set that up. Well, next thing you know, all the bait shops across America were carrying golden shiners. And what happens when you don't use all your golden shiners? Jim just dump them in the lake. And so we had some in our lake, in our neighborhood. People came out there and fishing with golden shiners and then dumping it. Next thing you know, you got golden shiners all over the lake. And everything eats golden shiners. They get big enough where, almost 8 inches, and you can catch them on flies. And they're fun to catch. Their price is pretty good. But the vast majority of them are about 2-3 inches. So that's why that seducer works so well. And then you have traditional crappie flies, the clouds of minnow, woolly bugger, crappie candies, any kind of little hair fly also works pretty good. Squirrel hair, rabbit fur, anything like that. And then you can match the commie hatch. As Mark Pincel likes to say. Rooster tail, Tom Nixon spinner, and the road runner, the coyote fly. And that was somebody tying coyote flies this past weekend in New Orleans. Next month. From Lake Charles, I can't remember. It was Ken.
Probably the same guy got that, I got Tom Nixon spinner from somebody a few years ago, one guy from Lake Charles,
Uh-huh,
which is the same person.
yeah. And then, of course, the Bobby Garland shad uses squirmy butt. Okay, so I had to rate the top 6 flies. On the 6 that I prefer to use, especially this time of year. The coyote fly or the clouser, sea gooser, woolly bugger, obviously, crappie candy, silly minnow. That's the one where you tie the silicone legs in there and you use the crystal flash. On that woolly bugger, I actually tied most of mine for like crappie. This is the one I tied for like the little moe and trout fishing and all that. The fun crappie fishing, I'll tie it with tiny lead eyes, so the hook goes up like that when I retrieve it. And then number 1 is the fluff butt. And you can tie those with bead heads, you can tie with jig heads, or whatever, and just a wide variety of color combinations.
And this is the color.
Huh? What color?
Hey, you guys, black chartreuse.
Yeah, black chartreuse, red and white.
Not yellow.
I don't have a gray and gray, but I'll show you gray in a second. But the important thing is that you have this variety of color. Because I go out to the lake and I fish off that end of that dock out there, beside the lake. And I've tied on like a black chartreuse and I got hit. And then I'll tie blue and white and never hit it, every cast. It's crazy. I can't explain the mindset of a crappie. That, they will not eat anything for 24 hours and 30 minutes. I mean, 23 hours and 30 minutes. And then some 30-minute period during the day, they'll go crazy and they will just eat anything. Or, they'll not eat this color one day, and the next day they'll only eat this color over here. It's crazy, but sometimes, that's why fish find is important, because you can see the fish that are actually there. And I'll tell you the most, live scope, you've heard live scope, where you actually see the fish moving and everything. When we go out to fish with the guides out there to the event, they've got live scope. You get to a spot, and you might have 200, 300 crappie sitting on a brush pile. And you drop your lure or whatever, and you don't get a bite. And you would think, okay, what's wrong with these fish? And they're not getting. And then you put crappie nibble on, and you drop it down there. They still want a bite or whatever. Then my daughter, who comes with us on a lot of these trips, she'll throw something that has a little pink in it, and bam, she's got like 4 fish in a row. So I have no idea as to what their mindset is. I can't help you there. You just got to go out and try and give them different things to look at. As far as the fluff butt options go, I've been tying on jig heads for a long time. But now the price of tungsten beads and competition jig hooks has gotten down enough where it's actually cheaper to tie with the jig heads and the hooks like that. Those tungsten beads used to be $10 a bag, like this right here. So now if you still want to tie on the jig hook, there's a website, there's a gentleman out there, I'llBeJig.com, and he'll make you custom jigs to your liking. You go on his website, you go through a form, and you tell him what weight you want, what type of hook, whether you want a sickle hook, a standard Aberdeen hook, whether you want the hook to be barbed, or barbless, or black, or bronze, and what weight, and what hook size, and everything else. Then you can order in batches anywhere from 25 to 100. And for me, those jig hooks like that I use for 100 works out to be about 27 cents each. So that's a pretty good deal, a really good deal. But anyway, you can see that fish ate that fluff butt right there. That's a green grain. So they'll eat those little flies like that. And there's another one that ate a fluff butt, and this was fished under a strike indicator. And with Tony Ricardo, I don't know if y'all heard of Tony Ricardo, with the fly fishing gentleman that had Ricardo poppers and all that. I actually fished with him, and he taught me this technique where you have a little strike indicator, and you have your little jig fly. You throw it out there, and you twitch that indicator just like you would twitch a small popping bug, where you just kind of move it a little bit and stop, move it a little bit and stop. I'm talking about like inches like that. You just do a little twitch like that. It's so funny because you do that and you twitch it, and then you see that little strike indicator, it just go woo, and then you set it up and you got it. No. But it keeps it, he said, it keeps it in that strike zone for a long period of time. And what happens is that pig goes like this. With that marigold tail, it has all that action to it. Pretty neat. Okay, so for casting the crappie, I want more of an open cast, particularly if I'm using a strike indicator combination weighted fly. And you don't need to worry about the distance. You know, most of the crappie I catch it from here, Mike right there. And then there's the vertical fishing technique. That's where you take and you go like this under the trees, and that works particularly well also. But they're always looking up. So what you want to do is get your fly down as far deep as possible, and then slowly bring it up. Because when it's coming up like that, and then you just feel some tension on there, and that's when you've got them. Of course, they love crappie weather. Yeah. I might go crappie fishing tomorrow. There was another crappie day on the water. That's my wife. And we're fishing. You can see that structure right here. It's just sticking out. And we're just fishing it along there. And that was February also. And then when my youngest son, Jacob, was about this, so we went fishing one time with my dad. And I say this memorable trip, that was a trip because at that point in time, Jacob was fishing just fly rod. He had gotten away from fishing. He was really good caster at that age. And my dad, my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, was a big fly fisher. Every time he'd come fishing with my dad, he'd pull up a fly rod, and my dad would say, "He's got that damn fly rod again." We're going to be fishing out of the tree, you know, flies out of trees all day. When Jacob pulled out his fly rod, my dad said, "You know, what's he bringing over there?" "Fly rod, Dad." "Oh, okay, just put it in the boat." So he did a different treatment. But Jacob was casting and fishing full butt, and my dad was fishing little beal spins. He liked to fish little beal spins, and we call them rooster tails in South Florida. And this was in Lake Henderson. And my dad was catching one, and Jacob would catch one. My dad would catch one, Jacob would catch one. Jake was keeping even with my dad. My dad was one of the best fishermen in Southwest Louisiana. So what I noticed after a while, what Jake was doing, he'd cast out and he'd start, you know, stripping like this. But when it got to within about 10 feet of the end of the fly line from his rod tip, he would start doing this and just kind of raising it back like that, and then bring it back and cast again. Well, when he do this like that, he'd get a hit. Okay, what is this thing in trout fishing? called. Y'all know? It's called the Rising Ring Lift.
What?
The Rising Ring Lift. Like this, Rising Ring Lift. I don't know, sometime ages ago, maybe 18th century or whatever, somebody figured out that when they were bringing their fly rod back to make a cast like that, their line back, that sometimes the fish would come and hit as the fly was coming up. And they gave it the name, the Rising Ring Lift. But I mean, there's a whole lot of trout fishermen. What they'll do is they'll cast out and let it go down, and then they'll just lift it up like this. And that's how they catch their fish, using the nymph. Well, that's what he was doing, you know, and catching crappie on that.
Reminds me of a figure 8 pattern for the muskie.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of on the same lines, yeah. So, yeah, that's a technique, you know, keep that in mind because it really does work. You know, just get your line in like this, close, rod tip close to the water, and then just bring your rod tip up like that. You can still make a cast as long as it's not, you know, past 12 o'clock, but just bring it up to the side like that and lift up and see how it, I'm telling you, it's going to work. It really does work. Now he's older. He's got another technique that he's got. It's called the bait and switch. He goes out with a spinning rod and a fly rod. And he takes a spinning rod and throws out like a rooster tail or something like that. And he works the bank or whatever, and then catches one. Puts the rod down, picks up his fly rod, and works that area. And so he can cover a lot more water in half the time. He's out of Houston. There's an area out there called Damon Lakes that's open to the Texas Fly Fishers Club members. And it's like 7 lakes, and it's like probably 150 acres of bank fishing. So that's how he's able to, you know, he got a lot of walking to do, and he'll just, you know, go and cast it, go and cast like this. Okay, you got one, pick up the fly rods over in that area, because they do congregate this time of year in this pond. There's another fly rod fish. I catch a lot of sockeye on my kayak. That's how I fish a kayak. Same rules that apply to boat. Apply a kayak, but you can get a little closer, but I don't advise getting close. If you see a brush pile or something, don't get on top of it. Because a lot of times what it is like a tree that fell in the water. So the end of that tree is out in the deeper water. You don't see it, you don't notice it. But it's going to hold fish as well as the part that's above the surface. And there's my buddy Kevin Andre. And these are a couple of Kincaid Lake sockeye we call. There's some big sockeye in Kincaid. There's another fish. Okay, this is the best part of sockeye fishing, right? Questions? Anybody?
What effect did coattail with the water down? What do you see happening this spring?
It'll be okay this spring, but the last time we did the drawdown, the second year after that was awesome fishing. It really was, for bass and sockeye. Yeah.
Is the water still down?
Oh, yeah. They supposedly have closed the gates, but it's come up about maybe a couple of feet from the lowest it was. But I mean, you know, I haven't been out there in the last couple of days, but
You know, it's come up. We're rushing to finish my dock in seawall before the water gets up too high. But the reason it got so good the second year was because at that first year, the water kind of stayed a little dirty, and of course, but you had good spawning areas for all the fish. And the second year, some of that grass came back, a lot of the potato weed and some hydrilla, but just a mixture of good grass. And that's what really helps the fishing, is to have that grass there, but also have the water bottom to the spawn on. So for the second year and third year, the fishing was really good.
You mentioned fish finder and finding them. I'm curious about bait balls and distinguishing the difference between that fish and the bait ball, and if you use that at all to determine the fish.
Yeah, well, on The small one, I set it just to look for a fish particular size or whatever. But on the Lowrance that I have, I can see bait balls in there. And interesting, both Cotillo and Kincaid and even Indian Creek have a lot of redfin shad in it. And they will school up and ball up. And bass will come in and bust them up. Well, if you look down the bottom of the graph, you'll see some other fish that aren't, moving up or anything else like that. Those are sidewalk, those are crappie. What they do is they let the bass tear up in the schools. The bass are terrible as far as actually, they'll injure a lot of fish. I mean, redfish shad, all you gotta do is look at it hard and it dies on you. So it'll kill a lot, and then those redfish shad get to the bottom. And the crappie have easy meals on there.
But like striker fishing, we look for the bait balls rather than the fish in particular.
Uh-huh.
And you find the bait balls, you find the fish.
Oh, yeah, that's
It's
true.
the same thing.
Oh, yeah. That's true here, it's Toledo Bend, everywhere. Any other questions? Okay, Mike, it's all yours.
Good job, kid. Hey, Jim. Thanks for telling us how to take pictures, photographs. Yes, thank you.
Great.
Any last thoughts from anybody? Okay, the next meeting is going to be February 13th. And it's going to be the fly tying, will be led by Rick Maddox, going to tie a fly called the Mad Dog. So I don't know what. Robert, you know what the Mad Dog looks like?
No, sir, I don't know. I've never seen it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If you plan on going to the Little Ball, you need to come on February 13th, whatever it is, and learn to tie the Mad Dog. That has become my go-to. I mean, if I had to have just one fly in my box on the Little Mo now, it'd be a Mad Dog, preferably in black and chartreuse.
Have
Is
you
that the
fished them?
mystery fly? Is that the mystery fly?
Have you fished a little more than once?
Yeah.
Per day.
I think it's the second home.
Prior to this season, prior to this summer, my number one fly was a God's Choice Hare's Ear. But I've replaced that with a black and chartreuse Mad Dog now. Just different colors, but that's what seems to be working the best for me.
What was the first one you said?
Guys,
Is that like an established fly, the Mad Dog?
It's his invention.
Yeah.
It's Carlton's invention?
no.
No, Rick's.
Rick
Oh,
Maddox.
Rick Maddox.
The idea came from when we was on the White River. Not a year ago, I don't think, but a year and a half ago. Arkansas shad, an Arkansas shad pattern. They were using white, it'd be white with a little bit of gray, all marabou. But if we just tying them up in a bunch of different colors.
It's all marabou. So so chartreuse and white marabou with
Chartreuse and
Chartreuse.
black.
Black and chartreuse is my number one color.
okay. Any weight on it?
A bead head. I'm using a number 12 hook with a, I don't know whatever size bead you use for a number 12 hook.
A jig hook or,
I use a jig hook, yeah.
okay, so goes with hook point up.
Yeah, you can tie them on a jig head. Just, it don't make any difference, I don't believe.
Yeah.
There's something that'll get down.
Okay.
Can't believe you gave up.
All right, plan to go a little more. You heard.
Be
on the
13th.
I got a quick question for, I got to spend about a month in northwest Arkansas, Bentonville area. I'm gonna have some time off here, and I was curious if anybody knows a cool place to guide and fish up in that part.
Go to the Roaring River in Missouri.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's got, it's a, it's, I don't know what it is, you know, they stop fish, they got a hatchery.
It's a hatchery right there.
They put fish in there once a week,
When you going?
and,
I'm going next week.
Okay, it's just open on Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
yeah, I think they're in their winter catching release season. Right?
Yeah, Friday, Saturday, well, I was up for that, but Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
We went there,
In November, they start from November the 1st of March, it's just 4 days. And I'm always there Monday night through Thursday, I don't ever fish.
You fish on the shore.
Oh, yeah, it's all clean bank. You can take kids and fly fish off of it. It's great.
Roaring River.
Roaring River.
They have a, it's an RV park, it's a state park.
It's
right?
state park, yeah.
Yeah.
Catskill.
Yeah. It's right,
Rainbow.
what, about 30 minutes maybe from Bentonville in that area?
Well, from Branson, it's like 45 minutes.
Yeah,
I don't know how far it can get.
I mean, it's on the Missouri border. Southern Missouri border.
Oh,
Rogers.
River Springs.
Yeah, incredible. I'm sure they have a lot of other streams that they do.
Yeah,
That one ain't guaranteed. They don't-
Beaver, tailwater below Beaver Lake, that's on the White River. That's a stock tailwater, that's near UE Springs, I believe.
Is that the White River proper where everyone, the world-class water? that everyone comes to?
Well, I think the Bull Shoals, tailwater is, you know, really the world class.
Yeah, the world record ground.
Yeah, that upper part, there's like 4 dams on the White River, it goes north into Missouri and comes back down again. And the White River is the last of those 4 dams. The first one is just north of Fayetteville. And there's some good trout in that river too. Just not as many big trout as there are near Mountain Home.
Right.
But you can catch 20-inch rainbows and browns there.
Any other tips on catching fish?
Go.
So if I want to go to Natchitoches and fly fish for the trout, what would you recommend fishing?
Yeah, but it has been the last 6 weeks.
You know, I generally tie on my hands eaters.
And I was gonna go Monday.
Woolly boogers and
I call them.
some of the other stuff, yeah.
And they was out there.
Just the stuff I use a little mold. Yeah.
Right,
They don't
okay.
use a little mold.
No, I just move it out and let it go off. I was there, there were so many people on the bank trying to do it with their spinning reels and everything else. And one booger, I cast out and I let it go all the way along and just let it sit there for a minute. And then I'd start stripping back as slow as I could go. You know, I mean, I can feel stuff, but then you feel
Okay.
the best. I didn't use
Yeah,
it,
the only
because I don't
problem-
know how deep it is out in the middle. I bet it's only probably 12,
Yeah, it's,
maybe out in the middle.
yeah, it's still gonna be, but the problem is that it has some moss on it right now on there, so. Yeah, if you ain't go all the way to the bottom, you're gonna pick up some of that moss, but,
And I did,
Yeah.
you know, but it seemed like that was the only time I was getting that.
but you can take a strike indicator and put it about that far down.
Once it worked, I didn't
Yeah,
keep
it
going.
works.
How far is that?
About 4 feet down.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll come up and get it.
Now, where is this you're talking about?
Natchitoches.
Oh,
It's a brand new park that's state of the art, world class, whatever we'll call it. It's really, really nice. And they've got like, what, a 4 or 5 acre lake in there.
And there's a beautiful park too. Although I saw, it was new, not many people been back there, you know, they just finished restrooms. I saw a paw print about that back around out there. What it was, it could have been a cougar.
There's an eagle that flies around on that lake.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes the deer will be out on the forehead. I've been out when all the fishermen were there. I've been out there when they came out, they come out. The deer and the eagle.
Is that the one where,
Call them eagles.
guys?
Guys, that,
That's what you guys did.
concludes the meeting. I think you felt free to go already anyway, but.
Yeah.
Ted, it's nice to meet you.
Hey, Rich.
You want to meet me over there?
Okay.